Is Sam Darnold an equivalency to Geno Smith? Well, no. Is Geno a little bit better at him in certain things? Yeah. I think it get a little overstated a little bit to this, that there's some huge separation between a Geno Smith and a Sam Darnold. Well, I think that's where it starts to get really overstated. They're a lot closer together than they are further apart. When it comes to losing DK Metcalf, that's, a game-changing receiver, and that's a guy that, defenses had to account for every single given week. With that said, you had these guys on your roster last year and you didn't have a particularly good offense. And sometimes constructing an offense isn't just about having difference-making level of talent. It's about how all of that talent intersects and connects and is cohesive. And I think you especially saw between a Geno Smith and a DK Metcalf a lack of cohesion. I think DK talked about it last year in the interview with Mike Robb and Marshawn Lynch. And he spoke about the fact that they had a way of doing things in prior years and his relationship with Geno. And you got the sense that thing iced up as the year went along. And that, there's not a stat to track that kind of thing, right? It's not a stat to track that, hey, me and Tyler Lockett for years had been working on these plays that we would scout out on teams and say these kind of routes will work on these teams and then give it to the offense. And there was a working together. And last year it wasn't that. And I can't stat track that, but that reduced your efficiency as an offense. That reduced how good you could be as an offense, even with as good as the talent was. So is talent a big part of this to making a great offense? Sure it is. But it is also how all of it cohesively goes together. And another part of this, I would say, Gibson, is just that when you look at Grubb, he didn't know how to draw cohesion in any way. He didn't know how to cohesively bring the running game to pair it with the passing attack. He didn't know how to cohesively attack coverages. Instead, he wanted to look to attack mismatches, which is more of a college thing. You got to attack coverages in the pro level. He didn't know how to pair run game to pass game and that you sequence things to make one thing look to the other thing. I set this run game to set up the play action, or I set up the play action to then set the table for the run game to be better because they think it will be a pass. None of that was going on in how he was calling the game. All of this stuff worked in tandem to reduce down the functionality and effectiveness of the offense. Now you lose some of maybe the talent side of it. Maybe like to your point on this, Gibson, would be like, okay, some of that does go a little bit backwards, but do these other aspects take steps forward? And if those other aspects take steps forward in a major way, they can then overcome what you've maybe lost a little bit from the talent standpoint. The minor bit of maybe loss for Geno to Sam, and then certainly a little bit more of the major loss from DK to what you're trotting out at the wide receiver position this year. So there's a lot that goes into what makes a successful offense to me. And I might offer that as much as anything before we get to even actual talent, that having a really great offensive coordinator or a smart offensive coordinator, having a great offensive line coach, having a system that's modernized and that cannot allow defenses to know what's coming prior to the snap, by and large. I think these are things that are, again, harder to track, harder to measure, harder to gauge. There's not a statistic for it, but are as much vital parts to making an offense ultimately a success.